Hey guys, this is Natstrap here, and welcome to our Dark Souls Soul Level 1 Caestus and Pyromancy, and occasionally Consumable only run. The Pyromancy ended up being limited later on due to the fact that it kind of gave little reason to do the Caestus, but having laid down that, let's just get right into the run.
Yes, indeed. The dark sign brands the undead. And in this land, the undead are corralled and led to the north. Where they are locked away to await the end of the world. This is your fate.
Oh, new guy. Haven't gotten one of those in a long time. And a visitor, I see. Or not. Oh, new guy looks more dead than undead, so. We get up from our long time spent inside of the undead asylum, put away that broken sword we had, we have no need for such tools, and make our way through the asylum to this very large door that precedes the first boss in the first Dark Souls game. A boss that most of us probably have a good amount of experience with, but I'm not sure how many of us have experience punching this boss to death. It is a long and arduous practice. Though I'm not using a Caestus, I would consider it to be the same because it has the same moveset. It's just way worse in the damage department. As you're seeing, we're getting about 2 damage a punch. And we punch again and again until his health is rather low. Eventually, a sort of a rhythm was established here where he'd fly up, I'd get behind him, punch him in the butt as much as I can while he swung his hammer back and forth, until eventually he would fly in the air again and I'd have to get behind him, but eventually, after enough swings, even he would fall to a mortal's punches. And down you go, Asylum Demon. After those dramatics with the demon, we meet a friend who gives us an Estus flask and a key, farewell Oscar, and then head past the demon to see what awaits us beyond.
In the ancient legends, it is stated that one day an undead shall be chosen.
Can't we find a footpath or something other than, okay, I guess I'm a baby now.
To leave the undead asylum in pilgrimage to the land of the ancient lords. Lordran.
Gentle now, you're going down kind of hard. Ugh! Oh, my knees. Okay. At least we're out of there. Oh my god, I don't know if my knees will ever recover from this. Following our rather rough landing, we head to the Undead Burg, where we test out the damage of our punches and our Pyromancy glove against regular enemies, which, as it turns out, is just as pathetic, and so we rely mostly on the fireball to get us all the way down to where Havel is. This is where the Master Key we picked up comes in handy, so that we can actually get the Caestus before fighting a boss. We say hello to Havel, dodge right quickly past him down the stairs, hopefully the fall hurts him a bit more than me, open up the door that he was guarding, and for some reason I tried to close it here. That was a almost awful decision, almost resulted in our first death. Past that was the plant creatures of the Darkroot Gardens, which barred our way to a valuable member of this expedition. They were surprisingly resistant to fiery punches, even though they're made of grass. But then we met the man, the myth, the legend himself.
New arrival.
He sold me the Caestus. We would need quite a few for what lied ahead, so I just went ahead and picked up 3 to be safe. Following that, we popped some souls, because we needed the souls, to be blunt. Purchased some Titanite shards, and used those shards to get ourselves all the way to a +2 Caestus. Almost died to a Titanite demon, and then made our way down to get another useful item that we would need on this run, the Grass Crest Shield. This raises our stamina recovery, and as we're stuck at level 1, our stamina consumption is going to be awful. This led to our first death to this Black Knight, who I assumed I could beat. Despite my confidence, it became clear that we needed power-ups, and so we went down the elevator by the bonfire that was nearby him, after dying a few times to get the red tearstone ring, which we used to take on Havel. This was to get Havel's ring. I was uncertain if I would need it throughout the run, but regardless, it gave me an opportunity to practice my Dark Souls 1 parrying. Timing is a lot different than Elden Ring's, or at least it feels different. Perhaps it's just because of the difference between the 2 games, but we got the ring that we needed after parrying and punching him in the face a few times. Went and dealt with the archers that watch over the Taurus demon, and let them get us into red tearstone range. We summoned him over, climbed up the ladder, and plunging attacked him. Our damage at this point felt really good, but can somebody explain to me what happens right here? I have looked over this footage so many times, and I still don't... Did I trip over his toenails? Like, what happened here? He proceeded to kill me the same way, again, and again. But eventually, with the use of some pyromancy and some punches, we made it past the Taurus demon, who blocked our way to the bridge. Past the demon was another beautiful, beautiful friend.
Oh, you don't look hollow, far from it. I am Solaire of Astora, an adherent of the Lord of Sunlight. Now that I am undead, I have come to this great land, the birthplace of Lord Gwyn, to seek my very own son. The sun is a wondrous body, like a magnificent father. If only I could be so grossly incandescent.
Oh, but you are, my friend. Oh, but you are. As per usual, our good meetings are quickly followed up by a dangerous encounter. We cleared the bridge with the dragon's fire, and then ran past him. I picked up these items, though I knew they'd be of no use to me. It was an unnecessary risk, other than that soul there, which likely would end up seeing some use throughout the run. We lit the bonfire, pulled the lever, and made our way up to the Black Knight, who I suddenly was able to remember. You can infinite backstabbable NPCs in this game, so eventually with enough of those, he fell, giving us a Titanite chunk, which would be very useful once we got to Anor Londo. We utilized one of my favorite mechanics in this game, throwing the alluring skulls into fire pits to make enemies run over and burn themselves. And we managed to get our Caestus all the way to +5. Freed Lautrec.
Yes, sincerely. I am Knight Lautrec of Karim. I truly appreciate this. And I guarantee a reward. Only later.
Why does that guy sound so conniving? Next up on our punch our way through list was the twin gargoyles, who sat atop this tower and blocked our way to the first Bell of Awakening. Even as he roars, we put our dukes up, and also our fireballs, and started chucking at them. Managed to get a tail cut pretty early on. I didn't know that blunt weapons could tail cut in this game, but our first attempt was swiftly brought to the end as we were overwhelmed by their forces. My second attempt ended up with me in a bad place. I was cornered, hit with 2 swaths of fiery breath, but I managed to escape the corner, run around their fiery breaths, heal up, and eventually knock one down. With one left, the battle was easy. I know you're guaranteed to get it later on, but I felt pretty lucky getting the Gargoyle Helm on my first kill of the Gargoyles and not in Anor Londo. Following them, we rang our first bell of awakening that chimed throughout Lordran, and decided that next up we'd head down to the Undead Burg to take on the Capra Demon, who I knew would be a pain. Past the dogs, we opened a door. As that man said, saved a man, and then got jumped in the lower Burg area by all these thieves. Past them, we came across the actual Capra Demon, who I died to multiple times before I managed to get a good run, like in this one right here. The dogs just jump you so easily here no matter where you run. Without them, he's not too bad. Now, following that attempt and many others, we managed to get this one where I ran upstairs, and in this run I learned that sometimes my focus on the fact that the fireball can kill things faster can cause me to make bad decisions. For example, I went up here, threw a couple of absolutely useless fireballs before I just used my Caestus on this dog. I ran back up here, healed up, and prepared to try and throw a fireball at this one, but he interrupted me. I managed to beat him down as well. Following that, it was just the Capra Demon, who isn't too difficult. You can get him to fall right here, do a plunging attack, and our plunging attack was doing pretty good damage. In the end, I ended up using some of our throwing knives that I'd stocked up on, and some punches, and he fell shortly after. Did not stop me from getting greedy and trying to kill the thieves I'd left at the door, who... well, you saw what just happened. I then had another bad idea. I curled up in a ball because I decided that shortly after escape, I wanted to come home. What am I doing back here? Why do I do this to myself? We take on Oscar so he can finally rest in peace with a good old parry and a bow. I then lured a Black Knight down here. For some reason, I thought that he might be able to fight, but I died immediately afterwards. Luckily, he did too, and so I got a red Titanite chunk, which would be helpful down the road. I had many attempts where I dropped down, and he would immediately smack me during the recovery frames of my fall, and even with red Tearstone Ring, our damage is almost as bad as it was against the Asylum Demon versus the Stray Demon. Which led to, luckily he liked to do the loop that he just demonstrated, where he would fly up, slam down, get punched in the stomach. When he didn't, I'd just have to wait for him to undo that. But eventually, after enough punches, I believe this attempt took me about half an hour, he fell, giving me a Titanite slab, which would be useful in Anor Londo.
You give me warm, give me soft.
We traded some rubbish with Snuggly the Crow in order to get a Titanite chunk. We saved Laurentis so we could upgrade our Pyromancy Flame and buy some Pyromancies, and then went down to the depths for real in hopes of challenging the Gaping Dragon. The overall journey through the depths wasn't much to write home about, but this guy, this little crocodile guy who actually is a giant mouth dragon, Congratulations to whoever came up with this design at From Software, because this still looks disgusting to me. With him, we used our magic weapon, a buff that we had purchased from the magic man who we had saved in the Undead Burg, in order to try to improve our damage. The main strategy was to let him slam his head down, and then punch him in the face, which, even when buffed up, as we can see once again, does atrocious damage. And then we would run up after he does any charges and start punching his hind legs and his tail. I really wanted to get a tail cut on this after seeing that it was possible to tail cut the gargoyles with a blunt weapon, but most of the time staying back there led to tail swipes like you just saw. And sometimes I messed up my range on him slamming his head down. He ate me instead of me bashing his face in. But eventually, as per usual, we punch, and we punch, and we punch. I was still greedy about that tail. But eventually, despite his jumps and his slams, we punch him in the face, and he falls to the might of the fist. Which gave us the key to Blighttown, a key which I would regret ever having been given. We went back to Laurentis, upgraded our Pyromancy Flame a bit more, and then went to the upper entrance of Blighttown. I don't know why I did this to myself. I died a lot trying to climb down this, whether it was being stabbed or slashed or smashed with a hammer or falling down a gap. In fact, here's a little death montage here. Fiery dogs. Or just my own stupidity. I never got better at quitting out when I was falling, though I tried. But eventually, after a lot of effort, a lot of time, I managed to make it down. The only good we achieved on that path was that we did get Power Within, which I forgot was up there when I started going down. We farmed these slugs for a good while in order to get green Titanite shards, a special upgrade material that we would need later. Eventually, I got a good run where 2 of them dropped their sets of 5 in a row. Also, the large Titanite shards that they can occasionally drop came in handy with getting our Anorlanda weapon. Following that, it was about time that we fight Big Spider Lady. Bring me your worst. I'm not sure how to feel right now. I started off thinking that the usual strategy of punch the boss in the butt would be our best case here, but that just led her to do this attack, which killed me so many times. I was not very good at avoiding the explosion. Mostly, yeah, anytime she curls up, she explodes. I always noticed it too late. That, or there was a few times where, I'll just let this play out. I ran into the aftermath of the explosion because I didn't allow it to go away. And yeah, I did that more than once. So, the main time we could get damage was when she did her sword combo, because we could punch the spider in the face and still have time to escape in case she decided that she wanted to do the explosion. And whenever she breathed fire, rather than trying to hit the butt or the face, we'd go and punch this leg, the one that stands the farthest away from her. Despite her fiery wrath and the searing burns that my body faced during this battle, and her tendency to camp in the lava, she too could not withstand a flurry of 1,000 punches. Following her is what I consider to be the most embarrassing portion of this run. I went over to Ceaseless Discharge, a horribly named boss if you ask me, and grabbed these clothes over here. Why are you so mad? It's not like I just grabbed your dead sister's clothes. And then I died to this. I thought he couldn't do that once he ripped his arm off, but I suppose I was mistaken. And then I forgot that I needed to run all the way back in order to get him to stop spamming that and do his jump. And so in my attempt to, my lack of knowledge and my attempt to get back there, I died to this again and again and again. But eventually, I managed to get through it with enough heal chugging. And eventually, he does the animation. If you pay close attention to him, he grabs over and then he does a big twist. And you can see that lava spread everywhere. That is an animation which he rips his arm off, which leads him to try to jump at you with his other arm. And even though our damage is poor against him, eventually, we come to be too much for him. Getting past him at this point was because I wanted to try and get a chaos weapon early on. So, despite the fact that I didn't remember where it was for a while, I threw on Flash Sweat in hopes that it would be enough to get me to get the Chaos Ember that lie in this lava pit. And though it was enough, that feels frame perfect. Next up on our preparation list was getting another ember that we needed that was past the Moonlight Butterfly. She did get me, more than once. I'd get impatient, or I'd forget to dodge, or I'd try to put up my shield instead of rolling through it. I never did get that spike attack 100% down. It seemed like if I ever dodged the first one, the second one was hitting me. But if I got hit with the first one, I could dodge the second one. Our damage with a buffed weapon was pretty good against her. But eventually, I saw her health was so low here, and I didn't want to have to wait for another phase. So, we chucked some throwing knives at her. Dodged her laser beam. And with a third throwing knife, she was down. Up the stairs past her is the Divine Ember, which I didn't think I need and ended up entirely spacing, but I would come to be very glad that I grabbed that. We used the Seal of Artorias to open this door back here, and got access to one of the better soul farms in the game, which we would use to get homeward bones and throwing knives and upgrade our weapons. We convince other people to throw themselves off cliffs for us. And then, after joining the Covenant, this ninja spawns, we kick him off a cliff. Nobody notices his disappearance until we spawn back in. And we take his ring, which allows us to roll better by doing front flips instead. Having rang both of the bells of awakening, Crestfallen Knight gives up and goes hollow, and we show up to put him into the ground. Now, after this, I went back down to the Lost Isolus because I figured I could kill the worms in order to get some red Titanite chunks, which I needed for a chaos weapon. And I wanted that chaos weapon really badly because I wanted to see how strong we could be against Ornstein and Smo. What I didn't realize was how painful it would be to try and farm these early on. We had a long, long run down these stairs and to the left, past all these fire-breathing demons, and past 3 Taurus demons. Stuff like the huge amount of Taurus demons and Capra demons down here is the evidence I point to whenever anybody tells me the second half of Dark Souls 1 wasn't rushed. Past them, a bunch of these roof rock worms can spawn. We got our humanity to pass 10 so that we had the best item discovery we could have at this point, and started our farm, which consisted of getting back here with no Taurus demons chasing us, and then breathing poison mist at them, which deals 3 damage a second. I also would throw some fireballs, but it didn't speed up the process much at all. Now, I'm not kidding when I say I tried this for probably about 8 hours and didn't get but 2 or 3 Titanite chunks, which was enough to get us a Chaos weapon, but it was not enough to get it as strong as I wanted it to. That would have to wait until later on, and so, without a fully upgraded weapon, we headed into Sen's Fortress, where these man-serpents would give me a very, very, very tough time for some reason. I remember these guys being so easy for me. Then again, I wasn't restricting myself to level 1 and using what is one of the weakest weapons in the game. Honestly, the tightrope walking was just about as easy as I remember it, so long as you use a shield. If not, then you kind of just need to tank the damage, but these guys didn't give me too much trouble compared to the larger, greatsword-wielding man-serpents. I wanted to get some more questline progress done, so I allowed this man to stab a wall and freed a dude wearing a big hat. Made our way down past the rubble, got a covetous gold serpent ring, redirected our trap, and tested my mild studying at Firebomb Academy, which allowed us to get to the bonfire at the top of Sen's Fortress that is hidden for cruelty reasons, and then fist fought a giant who also proceeded to use nothing but his fists and legs at me. Sadly, he tuckers out easily, and we were able to prove to him that bigger does not always equal better. Now, I expected that the Iron Golem would give me a really rough time, and not to say he didn't, there were times where he did, such as right here. Right off the castle, I was trying to do the same to you. What caught me off guard, though, was, even though our damage was rather mediocre, we were able to knock him over and make him wobble. I imagine that's because fire does more stagger, but, I mean, even when we killed him, he was sitting down. Thought that was going to take me a lot more than 2 tries. So we touched this beam of light, and I mean, they said this bring me to Anne Orlando. Oh, let go of me, please. Why are you hugging me? There's, Okay, can we bring the raven back, please? No? Oh. Can you please at least put me down gently this time? The crow sort of hurt my knees. Oh! Not again. Oh, not again. Oh! Even after such a rough landing, I knew that we would need Titanite chunks to make a lightning weapon, and that the golems in the area, the giants, dropped chunks. So with a mix of combustion and power within, we slew them until we had enough chunks. The chunks came easier than the red Titanite chunks. On the bridge, we faced off against an old enemy of ours. but the strategy was just the same, and his tail came off too. Though this time we didn't utilize any pyromancy. From this point onwards, no pyromancy was used during any of the boss fights unless you consider buffing yourself with power within to be a use of pyromancy. The beams, seeing as we are lightweight and not hefty, unlike Great Iron Tarkus, were not a problem. We cut another tail off of a gargoyle, slay him just as we've done to the rest of his brethren. And the next challenge would be the infamous Anor Londo archers. Now, I almost made it past them first try right here, but I was a bit dumb. I parried and riposted this one, and decided I'd go in for heavy attack, which threw me off, and as per usual, I suck at quitting out to save my life. On the next attempt, it went fine, and we got our Lightning Cestus. With the Lightning Cestus now available to us, we went and invaded our old murderous friend, Lautrec, who we had set free, and who promptly betrayed us by killing the Firekeeper. He met his end swiftly. We got our Firekeeper's soul back, and we even tried to get all three of his friends, but this one got to make it through the invasion. After that, it would be one of the hardest bosses in the run. Rightfully so. Cue the first death montage. Stabbed to death. Smashed to death. Slashed to death. Knocked in the air and presumably crushed to death. Slashed again. Stop, hammer time. Over and over, these two bosses beat me down, to the point where my death counter was in the hundreds, and I had forgotten to adjust it. But regardless, I went back in to face them again, and again. And again. Each time, I felt as though I was getting a little closer, as though my hard work and determination was paying off. Late into the night, I continued to fight these two behemoths of Dark Souls, making mistakes here and there until, eventually, the run came. Here is the entire battle against Ornstein and Smo in its entirety. I'd say the two most important parts of this phase of Ornstein and Smo are knowing who you want to defeat first meaning which one you want to face as Super Ornstein or Super Smo. In my case, I felt far more confident fighting Super Smo than I did Super Ornstein, and so I decided to focus fire Ornstein. Also, Ornstein tends to approach you at a distance from Smo, whereas Smo approaches from the back, meaning that it's harder to get, little pokes in on Smo, in my experience, than it is on Ornstein, who will separate himself from Smo. On top of that, this run had taught me that if you are going to use the Caestus in Dark Souls 1, you should concentrate almost entirely on utilizing the heavy attack. It has good reach, it has good damage, whereas everything else has very inconsistent and near touch reach, and not the damage to make up for it. So you want to mostly concentrate on using your heavy attacks. And then occasionally, if you find an opportunity where you can get a light attack in, but you can't get a heavy attack because the heavy attack is longer, then feel free to pop one in there. But usually, by doing so, you're getting greedy and the bosses will punish you. Now, after enough of this trial and error, I got a dodge attack in. As I said, occasionally you want to swipe those in on Ornstein, and he fell. It really do be your own people sometimes. And at this point, similar to Kazuma Kiryu, this betrayal just became personal. You may have both been my enemies, but you betrayed your friend. Now, Super Ornstein isn't too much of a threat. The main thing that you need to concern yourself with is making sure you keep your distance after attacks. A lot of times he'll do those big hammer swipes, and you can just get a free attack on his back from that. Or a heal off. The main attacks you want to be wary for is when he charges at you, and this right here, the Super Slam. Now, the main reason why I think that Ornstein, why Smo is more consistent than Ornstein is because in their super state, they both have the Super Slam. And generally, Ornstein's is bigger, from my experience, or at least it feels bigger than Smo's. Smo's feels like it should be bigger than it is, but it creates a tiny little electrical wave. Whereas Ornstein, I always felt as though I needed to literally run from him. Every single time he jumped in the air, my heart rate spiked, because I was almost certain that if he came down and I wasn't out of range, that was it for this run. And this was the first time I'd actually gotten Ornstein down, meaning that this is my first attempt in this run against Super Smo. I hate how he laughs. It makes the whole fight so much more unnerving to hear him laughing during this phase. When it came to Smo, the main key consideration that I'd attribute this victory to is patience, knowing not to be greedy because he will spam that slam, and most of his attacks, I imagine, would have one-shot me. So after enough patience and determination, we punch him in the legs until he falls along with his betrayed ally. We open a door and receive a prize for our efforts.
Thou hast journeyed far and overcome much, chosen undead. Come hither, child.
That prize is the Lord Vessel. You all knew that that's what I was talking about, right? We return the soul of the Firekeeper, Anastasia, back to her so that we can use that bonfire, Firelink Shrine. And then I bought a bunch of transient curses because I intended to hurt myself here. Went back to Anor Londo to upgrade our Caestus to +5 because the Four Kings are more susceptible to lightning than fire. Went to fight Sif so that we could get the ring that we would need. Because for some godforsaken reason, I decided that my first Lord soul that I wanted to gather was the Four Kings, the one that I was uncertain if would even be possible in this run. Sif wasn't too much of a challenge. The real difficulty that comes with fighting him is the pull at your heartstrings as he begins to limp around the arena, desperate to defend his master's grave. You can rest now, Sif. I'm sorry. With a bow, we take the ring of Artorias and go to fight the hardest boss in this run. Here's another death montage. Their swipes are large and damaging, especially if you're near the blade. They will gang up on you. This boss is intended to be a DPS test, and we are using a low DPS weapon on a build that can't upgrade it at all. Also, this laser beam attack here, if any of you in the comments know how to dodge it, please tell me, because no matter how much I tried or searched online, it appears to me that that attack is just, you have to eat it. They had the same AoE explosion that kept getting me, similar to Quelaag. Their backswings would frequently hit me. Once again, the AoE explosions, I would run into them. But eventually, just as before, the run came. Now, if anybody else wants to try this, and keep in mind, I would not recommend trying this, some key factors is that you need to know how to dodge the Four Kings perfectly outside of the one undodgeable laser beam attack. There is some heavy RNG to the runs because sometimes they will spam the unblockable, undodgeable magic attack and just run away from you. Something I did learn, as per usual, focus on punches, the heavy attack, the one where you force your arm forward and get some good reach and damage. You can continue to hit where their body was. I thought this was going to kill me here. You can continue to hit where their body was after they fade away. And it seems as though if you are really close to one of the Four Kings, like basically just grabbing his torso, then the other ones will try to not gang up on you. It's just if you are not literally touching one of them, all four of them will dive bomb in. And you need to be aware that while you are attacking the afterimage, the remains of the Four Kings, the other ones are homing in on you to try and get attacks in because you are no longer in contact with one of the Four Kings. So while that tip is useful to get some bonus damage in, usually you're going to be lucky to get one swing in. When that comes, you need to pray you have some Estus. And like I did there, I'd just block it because you're going to take less damage and it's gonna hit you anyways. You can delay it, but you cannot prevent it. If you run in a certain pattern, it'll spin around you for a bit, but then it will home in. And the issue there is that you're basically waiting on a timer to come and hit you, rather than just knowing when it's gonna come and deciding to be at full health when it gets you. I was stuck on these guys for days. And every time any of them decided to gang up, you can see the panic as I try to roll away. Another thing, they have a sweet spot mechanic. If you get hit by the hilt of the sword, as you see right there, that did relatively little damage to me. I could eat a couple of those. But whenever I got hit with the blade, it was most of my health bar was gone. The other issue is when they do their grab attack or their explosion, you have to run away, which makes the others instinctively want to gank you. A lot of the attacks do need to be rolled through, but there's also a good amount of them that you can just sidestep by moving in one direction. And once again, as per usual in Dark Souls, I would recommend not locking on to anybody. Locking on to enemies alters your movement, makes it so you can only roll in 4 directions, makes it so you can't sprint, and the lack of mobility when locked on means that locking on is usually a bad idea in Dark Souls 1. Now, I panicked here because when they back up, that means they're going to shoot the laser beam at you, and there's 3 of them, and 2 of them started backing up, which meant that I was probably going to get 2 of them. But luckily, I was able to run up to this back one, and after so many tries and so many hours and many late nights trying to defeat them, they fell. I spoke to Darkseeker Koth and began to walk the path of mortals, the path of darkness. I placed down the Lord Vessel, which would unlock the rest of the Lords, allowing them to be slain. Grave Lord Nito. Seath, the Scaleless. And the Witch Isolith. First to come was Seath. We went over, beat up this channeler, and got insta-killed by Seath. Luckily, we avoided being cursed. Being cursed here is horrible. Realized that I almost thought that I wasn't going to be able to punch through that, and I was going to be kind of soft-locked. Ran through some invisible platforms, and went to fight Seath. We smash his crystal, and most of the fight became sort of bait and switching him, baiting him out to breathe his crystals, and then running over and punching him while he breathes his crystals far away, as we do right here. He breathes it behind us, which allows us to run over and punch him, eventually, to death. We take our second Lord's Soul. Following that, we went and farmed some humanity so that our Chaos weapon could be as strong as it could be, and because we needed to open up the shortcut to save our good friend, Solaire. Demon Fire Sage has a almost exact moveset to Stray Demon, but his AI behaved a bit differently for me. I would get him in a corner and then get him to do the slam attack, punch him in the stomach, punch him in the stomach, he does the slam attack, punch him in the stomach. Rinse and repeat ad nauseum. Occasionally he'd break it, but then you could get him right back into it. After that was the Centipede Demon, who, annoyingly, you cannot punch the tendril he launches at you. I assumed that was a hitbox. And so I thought that I was doomed here when he just decided he was going to blast over and over again. But eventually he did decide to walk over on our platform. And while this boss normally is the biggest pain in the butt for me, it only took 2 tries to defeat him, granting us the orange charred ring and allowing us to progress onwards to the Bed of Chaos. Now, I think we all know how poorly designed the Bed of Chaos is, so I'm not going to showcase the entire fight. There was a large chunk of deaths here, but all of them were to the same normal things that you expect to die to the Bed of Chaos. What did scare me is I didn't know that she could firestorm in here. I freaked out and just started flailing at it, and luckily I had enough damage to put it down, leaving us with only 1 Lord Soul left to claim. Before we left, though, we did farm these guys for red Titanite chunks, because while the bugs have a, 2% chance to drop it, they have a 10%. We got our weapon fully upgraded because I knew that Nito and the skeletons were weak to fire. Took on Pinwheel, if you want to call that a boss fight. And for once, traversing through this area wasn't difficult because I decided to get the Sunlight Maggot first. We saved Rhea from her hollowed protectors. At this point, just because I missed fighting NPC-type enemies. And then made our way over to fight Nito. Now, I knew going into this that Nito was fully capable, especially with that attack, of taking down his skeletons. What I didn't know is that I thought Nito's attacks counted as a cult, and therefore would permanently slay his skeletons, and you can see me kind of freak out here when I realize that his skeletons aren't down for good. And so cue another death montage. Stabbed from the ground, skeleton jumps into me, skeleton rolls into me, dark wave. Eventually I sat down and decided that I would need a divine weapon. So we returned to Andre, and finally made one of our Caestus divine. I was glad we got so many extra green Titanite shards later on, though I was only able to get it to a +5, which meant that our damage, at least to the skeletons that we needed to kill, was poor. And so we died again. And again. But as per usual, eventually the run came. Seeing as this was another boss that gave me an immense amount of difficulty, rather than passing over him, we will show the entirety of this fight in its entirety. Now, the main strat was to backstab the skeletons, because that would pretty much instantly kill them. After that, we quickly switched over to our Chaos Caestus, and were able to take the big man on. I swapped between different Caestus to see which one would end up doing the most damage to him, seeing as I was not able to keep my 10 humanity. And in the end, our effort to get our lightning Caestus was worthy, but our effort to get our chaos Caestus was useless. I probably should have gone for a Fire Cestus instead, but for some reason I was confident in my ability to keep enough humanity on me. As you can see right there, it does 1 more damage than my Chaos Cestus. Which means that all along I could have just stuck with the lightning one, but I wanted the Chaos in the off chance that I was able to have 10 humanity during this. Had I learned my strat against the skeletons and known that I was going to need a divine weapon, it may have been useful, but hindsight, as per usual, is 2020. His hitbox I found to be very wonky with the Cestus, because sometimes I would punch underneath him in the middle of doing an attack. And also punching him in the back isn't really an option, because my fist doesn't reach through his cloak. The main attack that I needed to be on the lookout for was any of his Dark Wave abilities where he explodes outwards. And with that I needed to be especially careful because I didn't want to run so far as to aggro the other skeletons in the room. But I also didn't want to get hit by it. Because even blocking it, it does a good chunk of my health bar. And sometimes he likes to spam it. Luckily, we kept that front flip ring, which allows us to get extra distance. So even when we're too low on stamina to run, front flipping away, cartwheeling away, somersaulting away, whichever term you want to use, does serve to be effective. After that, it was just a lot of back and forth. Punch, run away, punch, run away. Seeing as the rest of this is kind of just a repetitive punch, run away, I've discussed my strategies. I'd like to tell you guys this run has been very, very difficult. I assumed this would take me a week or two, and it ended up taking me about a month and a half. I've done a few challenge runs, but this is by far the roughest challenge run I've done. But I feel accomplished having done it. And so if you want to give it a shot, I just want you to know, be ready, because it's going to be difficult. I'd just tell you to keep in mind, get a Fire or Chaos Cestus, a Lightning Cestus, and a Divine Cestus. Because you are probably going to need all 3 of them at different points. That, or just take the Lightning and the Divine. Lightning served me well for the most part, and before that, I had Fire for that purpose, but after enough punching, he went down, and all that was left was Gwyn. Now, I know that there is the DLC, but after as much difficulty as I'd put myself through with this, I honestly didn't know if I'd be able to do the DLC, and I wanted to get this video out there, because I'd already taken far, far longer than I originally intended. So perhaps if you guys liked this video, you know, let me know in the comments below. Would you like to see a video in the same format where I run through the DLC? I did back up the save file in case I wanted to do that later on, and if you guys want to see that, then maybe I'll put it out there. We dump the souls into the vessel, and the kiln of the first flame opens. All that's left is for us to go in there and fight Gwyn. We ran past all the Dark Knights so that we could save our resources on him. And I charged forth with a confidence that I hadn't felt since the beginning of this run. I had fought in Gwyn plenty of times, and I know the main strat is to parry him, and parrying is what I do best. So imagine my surprise when I immediately got obliterated. As I learned from Darkest Dungeon, remind yourself that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer. But not letting that weigh me down, I went in for another try. It honestly felt good knowing that this was the only obstacle ahead of me, and after I got that initial parry off, I was right back on Cloud 9. After all, some of the most popular things that I've posted on this channel have been parrying compilations, and so it feels nice to fight a boss that I can just parry my way through in Dark Souls 1. Though I'd say that I'm probably a bit better at parrying in Elden Ring than I am in this game. My joy was over the hill, knowing that this was the only obstacle that I had left. That all I had to do to prove to myself that this is possible now was defeat Gwyn. Honestly, when I started this, I didn't think that I would be able to get past Ornstein and Smo. Once I got past them, I didn't even know if the Four Kings would be possible. After all, they're widely known as a DPS test. And so, with that last parry, Gwyn falls. I showcase my stats to just demonstrate for truth I am level 1. Here's the weapons I used. Dark Hand was just there for some extra humanity from NPCs. Mostly stuck with the red Tearstone ring and the Darkwood Grain ring. And so we step out as the Dark Lord, having chosen humanity over gods, especially having slain 5 of them.
Let true God be cast upon the world.
And yet the age of humans would still not begin. Thank you to all of you who have sat through this video, who have tuned into my streams on other games, who have watched my shorts so far. I started this channel up a little while ago, decided I'd finally pursue my dream of trying to make some content, put it out there, and as Shadow the Erdtree had just come out, I decided it might be fun to stream my playthrough of it on there, and I'm still working my way through that. College and having a busy home family has made it so that, you know, I kind of have to spread out when I'm able to get my streams in. But the support that I've seen from everybody has been wonderful so far, and I thank all of you who tune in for literally anything, who watch anything, who like anything, who comment anything, because it just feels good to put things out there. I challenged myself to this run about a month and a half ago, thinking that it would be done in 2 weeks, as I said before, and it was way more difficult than I expected. At some points, I didn't know if I'd be able to finish it, but I pushed through because I knew that I could do it if I tried hard enough, and that it might make somebody happy to see that this is a run that you could do. Maybe somebody else will try it and they'll enjoy it, or, you know. So, overall, I just wanted to thank everybody for watching, tuning in. Hope you can look forward to what's to come. As I've mentioned on stream before, I know my first 2 projects, this video and streaming Elden Ring, have been Souls-focused. This isn't going to be a Souls channel. I plan on playing all sorts of different things, and possibly doing some more challenge runs on different things, though if you guys do like this video and this challenge, feel free to let me know, likes, comments, whatever, because if this gets enough support, then maybe I'll go through and do the DLC. I did back up my save data, but as I said, I wanted to get this out in a reasonable time period, and it already had taken way, way longer than I expected it to. Following this, my next plan that I have in mind is I do want to run through Dragon Age Origins to Inquisition and record that so that I can record Veilguard. I've loved the Dragon Age series. I've played through Origins and 2 more times than I could count, but I've always struggled to get through Inquisition just because of the big open world map, and something tells me that streaming that and recording that might allow me to get through that, so hopefully you guys can enjoy that. I'm also a humongous Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts fan, so I do intend to run through the entirety of Kingdom Hearts at level 1 to celebrate, you know, Kingdom Hearts 4 will be coming eventually, and it came to PC finally. So hopefully you look forward to those projects, and I mean, regardless if you do or not, thank you once again for sitting through this. I tried to cut it down as much as I can. The second half of the game is a lot more unfinished, and so I included less of me running through the area because a lot of it was just me sprinting to the boss as fast as I could. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say at this end point of the video. I always struggle to end these things. This has been Natstrap, signing off. You all take care of yourselves and have a wonderful rest of your day.